Hi and welcome. I'm Lisa. I appreciate you taking the time to join me. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to click subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss out on new content. Today I'm back with a look at the Whimsy Stamps Haunted Graveyard die set. I'm loving this die set. It's great for cards of all sizes. Now I have some samples at the end of the video to share with you, and you'll see this on an A2 card then. Now, while we're here, I thought I would share my process for creating this silly spin on Frank. So I'm starting with an 8.5 by 11-inch piece of cardstock. And we're going to cut this on the 4-inch mark. So we're going to have two pieces of cardstock left, one measuring 4 by 8.5 and one measuring 7 by 8.5. We're going to score the 7-inch by 8.5-inch piece on the 3.5-inch score line to create a slimline card base that measures 3.5 by 8.5. Once we have our card scored and folded, we'll set that to the side while we do some die cutting. I'm going to use that leftover 4-inch by 8.5-inch gray cardstock to die cut the Frankenstein from the Monster Parade die set and that smaller shadow from the Eek word and shadow die set. We're going to do this a couple of times so we can layer these pieces and add dimension to our design. Okay, so we're going to speed up through this just a little bit while we finish up this die cutting. I have 2 layers of that largest shadow die from the Eek word and shadow die set that we're cutting out. We're going to do 1 layer of the letters from the Eek die set, and we're going to cut that out of gray cardstock. I have some stars cut out of white cardstock from the Slimline star background die. Now, the zombie is from the Monster Parade die set, and we're going to cut him out 3 times with gray cardstock. We're going to do 1 speech bubble cut from white cardstock. And the last die cutting is masking paper using the Haunted Graveyard die. And I'm only cutting the trees out. So just lay the trees down across the bottom of your masking paper and run that through your die cutting machine. So now that we're done with the die cutting, we can start to stack these pieces together with glue, and then we're going to set them aside and let them dry. While those pieces are drying, we can start to color the Eek word. So place the letters back in the negative cutout for this step because it makes this so much easier. I'm using a blender brush along with Memento Pear Tart ink, and you can use whatever ink you want for this. I'm going to go ahead and completely cover the letters with that ink. Now I decided to use the green ink because I'm going to use this same ink to add a little character to our monster cutouts. So starting with Frank, I'm going to cover his head, his hands, and his feet with the Pear Tart ink. And once I have those areas covered, we're going to come in and add some fun details to him. So I'm going to grab a ruler and a COPIC multi-liner pen and start to add a few lines to him to define a sweater. And yes, I see him wearing a sweater. So then I'll come in and add some diagonal lines because he needs some more style. And I'm going to use my Copic markers to color in areas of the sweater. I'm creating an argyle sweater for him. It just seems to be the perfect fit. And I did the zombie the same way. Only difference was instead of putting him in an argyle sweater, I actually put him in a striped shirt. Now to continue with Frank, we're going to color his shoes black. We're going to come in and color the wrench in his hand with a neutral gray from my Copic markers. And then for his pants, we're going to use a couple of different color shades of that neutral gray. I actually use N9 and I want to say N6 on his pants. So this is a great way for you to come in and give each character, some fun details, make them your own, and it just creates a silly little scene. Okay, so we're going to set those aside for now and work on our card base. So I have that laid here with that haunted graveyard that's die cut. And I'm adding pencil marks on each side of those trees so I know where to bring my masking paper in to stencil those trees down. I use gray ink and black ink for this. Now, when I bring in that die cut and lay it back down, you're going to see how this creates dimension and the illusion of a path leading deeper into our haunted graveyard. I'm going to continue to do some more stenciled trees. I'm going to do a few behind the house just to balance out the background And then I'm going to lightly go around the edges of the card base with the same black ink to darken those up, giving them a spooky vibe. Now, I did decide that for this card, I was going to come in with a little bit of purple. So I'm going to grab my Memento Grape Jelly ink and I'm going to lightly ink around those outer edges again, going right over that black ink, adding some of this purple to my card. Now, once we have the background done, we're ready to go ahead and start putting all of this together. Now, to go behind my house, I wanted some lights in the windows. So what I've done is I've cut a scrap piece of white cardstock and I'm coloring it with YR04, and I'm just going to glue it straight to the back of that die cut piece. I want to point out that here I'm coloring the bottom of Frank's shoes because they were lighter than the top of his shoes and they stuck out like a sore thumb against that black cardstock. You can use glue or mounting foam to add all of your die cut pieces to your card. I used a combination of both. I do understand not everyone likes the dimension, so you make the call on what's best for your card, whether you're going to use glue or if you're going to use that mounting foam or a combination of both. And you can see here how I have everything laid out on the card, so that's all pretty easy. We're going to wrap this up by coming in and adding those stars. So I used the Y32 Copic marker to color the stars and then just randomly glued them into the sky. I'm going to lay this in a splatter box and add white splatter to the sky. You can skip this part if it's something that you're not crazy about. Now, I am using my all-time favorite cartoonist pen to add these white splatters and just tapping it on the side of my finger, and it gives me the finest white splatters. What do you think about the difference in the two cards? Do you like the first card that I did with less detail or the one that we just did in the video? Which one's your fave? I do have some samples that I want to share with you that show you some other ways that you can use this new Haunted Graveyard die set. This is such a fun die set to have. I'm having a blast with it. Now, for more information on the products you've seen in this video, you can click the links directly below. I appreciate you so much for spending time with me today. And, until next time, please take care.